Hi everyone and welcome to 2025. I'm Mike Stevens and today I'm going to talk to you about some lens options that you might be considering for the new year. So there are a lot of lenses out there, obviously. There are some lenses that have very specific purposes like portraits, some that are mostly geared for landscapes, and then there's some that are in between. There are a few focal lengths that I find work really well for sort of an in-between depending on what you want to do. These are the 24, the 35, and the 50 millimeter focal lengths. So there are a few options that already exist, but what I want to talk to you today specifically about are the VCM versions that Canon came out with last year. They came out with one for each of these at different times of the year. The reason why they came out with them is they came up with a new lineup which is supposed to be more of a hybrid lens geared specifically towards both still shooters and video makers. While most lenses of that focal length and any other focal length for that matter can be used for both, this lineup is designed to help videographers out in a few specific ways. So, for example, I personally have the 24mm VCM lens. I've got it attached to my R5 here. One of the things that you'll notice when looking up these lenses is that they all have the same size, and they're mostly around the same weight. The 24mm comes in at 1.1 pounds, the 35 1.2 pounds, and the 50 at 1.3 pounds. So not a huge variation between each. But where this comes in handy from a video making perspective is when you're attaching lenses to a gimbal, there are certain weight requirements that go into adjusting that gimbal to make sure that it's level for the type of shooting that you're wanting to do. You don't want it dipping down or moving off to the side when you're not wanting it to do that. So having a lens that is the same shape and mostly the same weight really reduces the amount of time and effort that someone is going to have to do in recalibrating that lens, or the gimbal rather. They basically just have to swap out the lenses for the focal length that they want for whatever shot they are trying to get. Now, from a stills perspective, these are really great lenses, and at 1.4 you can really get into some much darker situations, or rather more low light situations, to get pictures or video or anything that you need to with a camera. Also, again, this size, it's a nice handy size, and it doesn't weigh a ton, so you're not gonna feel the weight of it as you're walking around shooting pictures and lifting your camera up all the time to get whatever shots you want. Especially if it's portraits, which shouldn't be too big of a deal, again, with the lightweight the lightweight features of these lenses. So as I said, the 24mm, I've purchased it. I really like the 24mm focal length. I don't have the 35 and the 50 on me. I haven't purchased them, but I did rent them, and I tested them out taking some pictures, which I'm going to show you right now of. I also like Legos. It's a big hobby of mine, so I wanted to just show you what the picture taking capabilities of these lenses are with a little Lego miniature set that I put together and just have lying around. So I'm gonna switch over to that right now and talk a little bit about that. Alright, now that I've switched over to the photos, I'm starting off here with the 50mm lens. You can see for each of the pictures going forward, I've added the stats for each of the lenses so that you can have an idea of what was going on when I took these pictures. So each of the lenses does have a different minimum focusing distance. Right now, I took all of the main photos from about 16 or so inches away from the subject here, not for any specific reason. It just happened to be my placement of the camera on the table that I was taking the picture from. The 50 does have a minimum focusing distance of around 15 or so inches. I personally just happen to be about 16 or so inches away because of, again, the placement on the table. So I'm not going to be able to get much closer to my subject in this particular situation than I currently am. So for this one, we've got the image at 1.4. Now moving up to 4.0 for the aperture, you can start to see as we get further away from the subject that the image becomes clearer. Also, portions of the image that are closer to the lens and further back are also becoming clearer, as you would expect as we get higher and higher with the aperture number. So here is f8, and again, this is about as close to the subject as I'm going to get. You're going to see most of the picture now is clear, including some of the little dust spots that are on the wall and the table that I'll remember to clean off next time. Next lens is the 35. Again, starting off with 1.4, we're going wider, so we're getting more of the surroundings in the image. You can again see parts of the image that are closer to the lens and further back. Away from what I'm directly focusing on are going to be a little on the softer blurred side, which is an effect that we do want. Moving over to f4, again, as we move out further back and closer up, things are going to become a little clearer in the image, and then of course at f8, pretty much all of the image is going to be clear. So the 35mm does have a minimum focusing distance of about 11 or so inches. So I did move as close as I could get to the subject to get a picture of that. So you can again have an idea of what that looks like close up. You can again see a little more closely the portions of the subject that are clear because of where I was focusing versus portions of the image that are further behind or closer to the lens that are going to be blurred more. Now the 24mm, obviously we're going much wider here, and at 1.4, again, we've got a variety of different portions of the image that are blurred with that nice soft bokeh look, with the image directly in front of us clear. You will notice also that it's not always just that the subject directly in front of you that's going to be clear, but other portions of the image that may be in line with that point that you're focusing on will likely be clear as well. You can see that in the stand on the lamp here, and a little bit in the bar going up, holding up the actual light bulb. At f4, again, more is coming in to clarity, and then at f9 here, much more clarity in the overall picture, which you're going to want something like this. If you are taking product shots, you're going to want to have more of the product, the image, the subject in focus to showcase or highlight the features that you're trying to sell, basically. But also in an image like this, you will see again more dust spots and other things like that, so it's a good way of determining what you want to get out of put into focus and out of focus, and also a reminder for me to clean my tables better. For this one, I wanted to get another close-up shot as well. This one has the shortest minimum focusing distance of all three lenses at about a little over 9 inches, and so I was able to get really close. Again, I did leave it here at f1.4, but you can see the image itself is clear. Surrounding the image, the subject rather, is a little blurred with that bokeh effect that we want. So overall, really good look for this subject with this and the other three lenses. So I've mentioned minimum focusing distance several times, and I want to correct a mistake I made in a few videos ago. In that video where I was discussing some of Canon's wide angle lenses, I did mention that the minimum focusing distance is the distance between the end of the lens and your subject. That's actually not the case. The minimum focusing distance for lenses on camera is the distance between the sensor and the camera and the subject. So pay attention to what the lenses are saying the minimum focusing distance is, again, depending on whatever your purposes happen to be. Also, the cameras will typically have a symbol on them on the outside of the body letting you know where that sensor is. On Canons, at least the R5 and the R5 Mark II, there's a white circle with a line through it up here in the, I guess the top left side of the camera body. I think that symbol is universal. It just depends on what camera body, make, brand that you have, where that symbol might be located. So I just wanted to make that correction, and thanks for Alex Ratson for making that comment, giving me that constructive criticism, and allowing me the chance to correct that mistake here with you all. So thanks for that. Now we get to the part where to buy this lens or not to buy this lens, or these types of lenses. So again, when buying a lens, you're going to have to determine what your budget is and what your purpose is. What is it that you're going out to shoot? Having prime lenses of a variety types is really nice. The zoom lenses will get you a variety of ranges, which I definitely wholeheartedly agree with getting some type of a zoom lens. But the prime lenses are going to get you a much lower aperture number, allowing you to shoot in lower light situations. Could be nighttime, astrophotography, street photography, indoor photography, anything with lower light situations. The 1.4 for the VCM lenses is really nice. The prices aren't that bad either. It's $14.99 for both the 24 and the 35 millimeter, and $13.99 for the 50. At least currently, there may always be a sale that pops up somewhere. The weight, as I've already mentioned, is really good. The minimum focusing distance for each of these is really good. The fact that the 24, 35, and 50 VCM lenses are all the same size and layout does help from a video making perspective, especially in relation to swapping out on gimbals. For still photography, it's also handy. They're lightweight. They fit in a bag very easily without taking up a lot of space, and you can't go wrong with that. Excuse me. Now, there are some alternatives to the VCM lineup that may help, especially if you're considering your budget. So the 24, 35, and the 50 do come in 1.8 aperture versions. They've been out for a little while now. So the 24 and the 35 are both macro lenses. The 24 is about $600. The 35 is about $500. They don't weigh very much, around 10 ounces or so for the 24 and the 35, give or take a little bit. They have around 6 inches of a minimum focusing distance. Now the exact specs are online, you can find those there. And the point is you can get really close with those lenses. The 50 is a 1.8 also, but it's not a macro lens. It's also the least expensive and the smallest out of those 3 options. It's about $200, weighs about 5 ounces, has a 11.6 inch minimum focusing distance. So again, not designed specifically to be a macro, but you can get close to your subject, and that a longer focal length will get you closer to the subject that you're shooting and still make for a good image. Now, there is also a 50 1.2 that's been out for a while. This one, it's about $2,300. There might be some sales. It does weigh about 2 pounds. Has a minimum focusing distance of 1.3 feet. So again, this is designed more for, in my opinion at least, portraits. So it's heavier, maybe not something that you're going to want to carry around a lot. You could obviously use it for other things, landscapes, cityscapes, street photography, things like that. But I do think that the VCM lineup and the 1.8 versions are much better suited for that. You'll still get really good pictures without the extra weight. So something to consider as well when choosing a lens. But yeah, you can't go wrong with either the VCM lenses or the 1.8 lenses. So like I said, I've got the 24 VCM. The 35 1.8 I've had for a few years now. It's been a fantastic lens. I may be considering purchasing the 35 VCM eventually. The one thing that I'm probably not going to get is the 50. I'm not going to go too in-depth here on that specifically, but for me personally, I haven't found the 50, even though a lot of people do consider it a very versatile lens, I have not found that to meet my needs. It's typically not wide enough for the street shoots that I want, or even the landscapes, depending on, of course, the scenario that I'm shooting in. And for portraits, it just doesn't seem close enough for me. I'd rather use the 70-200 that I currently have, or go for something like the 85, which is clearly set up for portraits, or even the 28-70, which I don't have either of those lenses, but they're really good for portraits, having used both of them. In any case, if you have any additional questions on these lenses or are curious about any other lenses that are out there, let me know. Happy to check those out and review them. Let me know what lenses you would like to see, especially since Canon is already announcing new lenses for this year. Much looking forward to checking those new ones out. All right, well, thanks for joining me in the video, and I'll see you in the next one.